Brought to you by Kellogg's, the folks who bring the best to you each morning. The widest choice of cereals in the forms you like best. Yours from Kellogg's of Battle Creek. Now let's all play What's My Line?
And now let's meet our award-winning panel of What's My Line. First, the popular columnist whose voice of Broadway appears in papers coast to coast, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And tonight, on my left, we have a very special surprise as a guest panelist, a brilliant young actor who soon will be seen in a wonderful picture called On the Beach, Mr. Tony Perkins.
On my left, a young lady who sparkles off-screen as well as on, Arlene Francis.
And now, one of the most important publishers in America and the anchor man on this panel, Mr. Bennett, Cerf.
Here's our panel moderator. He's been that for almost 10 years now, getting more difficult every year, John Charles Daly.
And that's one of the nicest things Bennett's ever said about me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's My Line once again. We have some very nice folks who've come to visit the program tonight, brought with them some extremely interesting occupations. I think interesting to you because they will be refreshing and in some ways novel. Refreshing to me because they probably give the panel a lot of trouble. We'll also have a famous mystery guest before my friends on the panel a little bit later in the show. And we'll meet our first challenger after summertime. I suppose a lot of people are still doing that.
Oh, yes.
Nice of you to have taken this little trip to be with us tonight. Mr. Carlson, the panel. Mr. Carlson. Will you join us over here, please, sir? Coming from so far away, do you know how we keep score on What's My Line?
Yes, I've seen your program.
All righty. Every legitimate no answer, we flip a card. 10 flips, you've won the game. It's as simple as that. Now let's let the folks at home and those who have come to sit in the audience in the theater tonight know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, Mr. Carlson is salaried. Let's begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Mr. Carlson, do we have the kind of a job here in America that you perform in South Africa?
Yes.
Do you work for a non-profit making organization?
Did you say non-profit?
Non-profit.
No.
1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Well, it's nice to know you're in the black, Mr. Carlson. Does the work that you do require some training?
Yes.
Special training. Is the work done more outdoors than indoors?
Yes.
Is the training that you require secured at some university?
No.
2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Is it more training that you would learn from another person doing the same thing or who had done the same thing?
Yes.
I know I'm going to get a no because this seems too easy, but with your name and by the look of you, you ought to have something to do with hunting or safaris. May I rule that out, that you do not?
Would you phrase the question specifically, Dorothy?
Well, I'm just trying desperately to get one yes. May I assume correctly that our guest, Mr. Carlson, has nothing to do with safaris or big game hunting in any way?
Obviously, you shouldn't have said it.
Small conference. I need some expert counsel.
Well, he's profit making, isn't he?
Yeah.
been wanting to do this for nearly 10 years. I won't say a word, that's all. I just sit here. Now, actually, Dorothy, we will give you a qualified yes. There is some of the phraseology in your question that gives us reason to believe that we would do you an injustice if we were to give you a flat no. So we will give you a sort of qualified yes.
Thank you, John. Mr. Carlson, do you ever come in contact with people who are in Africa to go on a safari or do some big game hunting?
No.
That's easy. 3 down and 7 to go. Tony Perkins.
Well, one thing I would like to get clear, do you deal more in the country part of Africa than you do in the city part?
Do you deal more in the country part of Africa than
In other
you
words,
do in the
did your
city
work take
part
you
of
more
Africa?
to the rural areas of South Africa?
No.
No.
4 down and 6 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you have something to do with animal life?
Yes.
Could they be all kinds of animals?
Now, what would you mean by all kinds of animals?
Fish, fowl, four-legged. I was going to say four-lettered.
Your personal opinion of these animals must not be allowed to intrude upon the decorum of this program. Did you say fish, fowl?
Or any four-legged animal. Just an animal, part of the animal kingdom. Could it be any member of the animal kingdom that Mr. Carlson is interested in?
Yes.
Are you yourself a hunter, Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Are you a white hunter? What does that mean?
Well, some people at one stage or another go hunting greens, you see.
Now, all right.
There are some who go hunting pinks, but a white hunter is usually a safari leader. Is that not correct, sir?
Yes.
There, you see.
So your question is Mr. Carlson a white hunter? And the answer is no. That's 5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Carlson,
All right.
do you ever supply animals to zoos or anything of that sort?
No.
6 down and 4 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
But you do have something to do with animals.
Yes.
Are they animals indigenous to Africa?
No.
7 down and 3 to go, Mr. Perkins.
Mr. Carlson, in the quality of the applause you received here tonight, I noticed an appreciative sort of response rather than one that might be the case if you injured animals. Now, do you help animals in some way? In other words,
No.
No, I don't think so. 8 down and 2 to go, Miss
Wasn't
Francis.
that clever of me, and didn't it work out well?
You sound like a sterling member of the SPCA. Yes. Are we beating about the bush quite a lot? Not to coin a phrase.
Actually, that's a very good phrase. I'll flip the rest of the cards over and we'll
John,
call it again.
If Mr. Carlson works with animals that are not indigenous to Africa, he must bring animals in rather than sending animals out.
No, he mustn't. But an ape would not just be indigenous to Africa.
I didn't say just indigenous. I just said indigenous.
Well,
I didn't mean exclusive to
Yes, you
Africa. No, I didn't.
Fascinating, just
I
fascinating.
meant-
Go on.
I meant that
Maybe he's a deep sea diver. No, go ahead.
Deep
We're out.
sea
aren't
diver,
we?
you're
We're
closer
finished.
than anybody else has been.
I am?
Yeah. Captain Carlson, whaling captain.
There you are. Just what I had in mind all the time.
And actually due in December next, I believe, are you not, sir, to go to Antarctica on a whaling expedition?
Yes, that's right.
His dad before him was a whaler, and he is not only captain of his ship, but he is the gunner. He is the man who puts the harpoon in the great whales that they chase down through the cold waters of the Antarctic. It's a fascinating world all of its own, which, as you know, is very well known to Americans because we had a lot of New Englanders that used to do it once. I don't think very many do now, but we did have a lot of them at one
Are
time.
there many Moby Dicks and all that sort of thing where you are?
Oh, yes, quite a few.
this is the first time we've had a Prince of Wales on this program.
Oh, man. Thank you very much, Captain. I hope you enjoyed the visit with us. And before Bennett says it, I must say, well, that was a whale of a start. We stumped the panel. And now let's see what we can do with the second challenger. Would you come in and sign in, please? Right there. Edna L. Yates. Is that right, Ben? Miss or Mrs. Yates? Mrs. Yates, and where are you from?
Lake Placid, Florida.
Lake Placid, Florida. Oh, fine. Nice to have you with us, Mrs. Yates, the panel. Hello, Mrs. Yates. Will you join me over here, please? You know how we keep score, Mrs. Yates?
Yes, sir.
All right. In that event, we'll let the folks in the audience here and those at home looking in know exactly what your line is. Panel, Mrs. Yates is self-employed. Let's begin the general questioning with Dorothy Kilgallen.
Mrs. Yates, is there a product involved in what you do?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Is it a useful product rather than a pure luxury?
You say, is it useful rather than a luxury?
Yes.
Well, I guess if we were going to describe it in these relative terms of useful or luxurious, we would have to agree it was useful, wouldn't we? Yes, it's useful.
Could anyone on this panel use it?
Well, under certain circumstances, we'd have to say that.
Well, would you be in a little trouble if you had to use it?
Would you be in a little trouble if you had to use
Or
it?
would you have a little problem?
No, I think we have to give you a no on that, Miss Dorothy. You'll see there are certain elements in your respective lives that would have to obtain before the usefulness of the product would be apparent to any of you. Yeah. Well, Mr. Perkins.
Did we establish that this product could be used in and around the home? Can it be?
Can it be used in and around the home?
Outdoors
Well,
as well as in, around the home, in the environment of the home.
Well, let me put it this way to be absolutely fair, with your permission, Miss Yates. Here again, it might depend upon the particular location and character and style of the home.
In other words, yes. We can say.
Yeah, well, within those terms of reference, yes.
Cheapers. Anyway,
You can say that again.
any way you jump, you're in quicksand with this one. Would you be more likely to use this product outside your home rather than in the living room?
Yes.
Can both men and women use your product?
Yes.
Does your product have anything to do with the beautification or improvement of the outside of your home?
No. 2 down, 8 to go, Miss Preston.
Is there anything dangerous or about this product?
No.
No?
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mrs. Yates, might this product be used in any way by officers of the law?
No.
No. 4 down and 6 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Mrs. Yates, could I carry this product around? From what you know about me, would you consider it unlikely that I would be walking along Fifth Avenue with it? Would you consider it unlikely that I would have your product in my home?
No. 5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Perkins.
Must a person be trained or instructed in the use of your product?
No. 6 down and 4 to go, Miss Preston.
That's a good question.
Did I understand Dorothy say she could hold it in her hand?
Yeah.
You could carry it. Would that be the sort of thing you would do with it if you had it?
I think the only fair answer to that question is no. 7 down and 3 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mrs. Yates, has your product ever been, or is it at the time you were using it, alive?
Yes, in part.
Yes, in part. I mean, it's partly alive, half alive and half dead. Is it partly alive when you're toying with it?
No.
No, that's 8,002 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
May we rule out that this is anything you would eat or drink?
Yes.
Is it solid rather than liquid?
Most of the time.
Most of the time? Can it go from one form to the other?
In the interests of sanity, I'm going to flip the rest of the cards.
I was thinking of ice, or something that could be melted. Yeah.
Mrs. Yates, I know you will find it very difficult to believe it, particularly Mrs. Yates, so attractive, and so magnificently garbed tonight. But she puts on her Levi's and gets out there and does a day's work down in...
Not garbage.
That's the one! I want you to meet Mrs. Edna Yates, who is the head of the Lake Placid, Florida Sanitation Company.
Oh, well, all the garbage in Florida is beautiful. Everybody knows that.
And Mrs. Yates owns and operates her own truck. There you are. And thank you for being a wonderful guest. That's my life. And now we'll meet tonight's mystery guest in just a moment. But first, here is a word from our sponsor. And now we come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery celebrity, for which my colleagues on the panel are blindfolded. Blindfolds on in place, panel?
Yes, John.
Good. Will you come in, mystery challenger, and sign in, please? As you know, panel, in the case of our mystery challenger, we go to a different form of questioning. You ask one question at a time, in turn, moving clockwise. And let's begin with Bennett, Cerf.
Well, the town is absolutely loaded this weekend with very, very important Hollywood figures here for one nefarious purpose or another. Could we assume that you are a very, very important Hollywood figure?
I would think so, yes.
Miss Kilgallen?
And,
Yes?
Was that a yes?
That was a yes.
Are you also important in the recording field?
Pardon? Madame?
In the recording field, making records?
In the field of pulp records?
I would say no.
No, that's 1 down and 9 to go, Mr.
Is that a
Perkins.
no?
That's a no, yep. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a movie which either appears on Broadway now or will appear on Broadway within the next week?
That question is slightly loaded.
The answer would be yes, though. Miss Francis.
I know I have a delicious feeling all over me that I know who this is. Do you sit tall in the saddle?
Getting warm. I would say a little crooked.
No?
I think the answer to that has to be yes.
String it along, Bennett. Go ahead.
Do you kick pebbles a lot and say yup?
Go on now. Who is it?
Have you a beautiful wife and a beautiful daughter?
Yep.
You and I ever related in the picture once?
Yes, ma'am. What?
Okay.
What?
Gary!
Cooper!
Okay.
Gary Cooper's right. Gary Cooper's right. And, of course, the thing that we all know in New York, I think probably it's going to happen in many places in the country. They came to Cordura is opening in New York on Wednesday. I guess many other places, which is
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, but that's the picture. But I understand that something else interesting going to happen. Aren't you going to Russia this week?
Yes, well, we, on the same picture, they came to Cordura. We are going to London for an opening there, and then we go to Moscow.
Oh, is your first trip? I mean, the Russian trip is going in tourist to get a look at the country.
Well, it's sort of arranged by the motion picture producers, I believe, for an inter-exchange of some American pictures and Russian pictures.
So what are you going to do in Moscow when you're there?
Well, we attend the opening of the first picture. First showing of the American picture, Marty, and do a lot of sightseeing if we can. And we figured sort of a spring in the first leak in the Iron Curtain, commercially, and so we think it's good on that account.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it's a fascinating city, and I got news.
Could I ask Mr. Cooper a question about They Came to Cordura? We published the novel, They Came to Cordura, Sport Arts novel. I wonder how closely you stuck to the novel in the picture. Did you really?
Did what, sir?
Did you stick to the Did you stick to the story?
Yes. We stuck very close to Mr. Swarthouse's story. And, as you know, maybe sometimes it is rather unusual to stick close to a novel.
Unheard of.
Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead. I thought
the picture follows the novel very closely. And seeing no reason to deviate from the novel is awfully good. And I can't sit here and plug a picture.
No, I don't want you to. Actually, I want to get back to your Russian trip. Do you know if any of your early movies were seen in the Soviet Union over the years?
Well, I happened to attend that wing-ding out in Hollywood, the famous luncheon at the Fox Studio for Mr. Khrushchev. And that was very interesting. And in the course of the whoop-de-doo there, I was introduced to the chairman, and I also met and talked to his wife and the wife of Gromyko and the wife of the ambassador. And they said they had seen 2 pictures of mine.
Oh.
And apparently he did recognize me, and because he asked me through the interpreter if I had made Western pictures, and I said, well, a few million, but not about 30, perhaps.
Well, this is interesting because the Russian people are, it isn't fair, I don't mean it in a derogatory sense, starved for entertainment, and they take to their hearts people that they see in films or at the Bolshoi or at the puppet theater. And you're liable to get yourself stormed when you walk through Red Square, so you better get ready for it, I think.
Well, they seemed quite like movie fans all over the world. They were very enthusiastic and seemed very friendly.
Well, they're very friendly people. Very friendly. You going down to Leningrad? You're going to get a chance to
go to Leningrad if we get a chance, and go out in the sticks, too, if we get a chance.
Oh, wonderful.
I don't know how far we can go.
Well, now you'll thoroughly enjoy it, and I know they enjoy seeing you, and thanks for being our guest.
Thank you,
It's nice to have you on What's My Line. Gary said, I'm sorry I can't fool anybody. And now we'll be back after this word from our alternate sponsor. And now until next week, good night, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
Good night, John. Tony, thank you for coming, and come again. You were so good.
Well, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I've always been on the other end of the questioning, and I think I like it better here.
We like you better here, too. Good night, Tony. Good night, Bennett.
Good night, John.
And good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us on What's My Line?